sheet out ahead of time. And as always, we begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. And with that, I will hand it over for roll call to Sarah, our deputy
Commissioner
today.
Werner?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
I'm here.
Commissioner Shaw? Here. Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Stanley?
Here.
Mayor?
Here. All right, moving on. Any announcements from the city manager?
I just have a few this evening. I just wanted to touch on conversations that the city staff have been having with Garfield Township regarding bulk water agreements and Act 39 permits. We had a really productive and positive meeting with Supervisor McManus and Township Manager Chris Barshef last Friday. So they've provided some thoughts on how we can move forward, and we are actively reviewing those. We had our first meeting on that today. The Joint Rec Authority permit has been submitted to Eagle by Garfield Township, so that's moving along for those who have been paying attention. And the 4 pending permits in Garfield have been submitted to Eagle. With Windy Hills Phase 2, I just wanted to note that that should be issued, that permit will be issued Wednesday. And then the other issue I wanted to touch on briefly is that the IT separation with accounting is moving along on schedule. I just wanted to thank the staff at the county, the leadership and administration, and the IT department. Everyone's been working really hard to keep it moving and keep it going along on schedule. And we're working on how we phase out the county being our network provider and then moving on to a new one. We've got bids that we're looking at right now. There may be a little gap between, and I'll keep the commission apprised if we have to kind of pivot for a week or two, but we should have everything to the board for approval for a new managed service provider at the April 7th meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you for that update. Any announcements from the city clerk, please?
Meetings scheduled for this week are the Planning Commission will meet Tuesday, March 4th at 6 p.m. in the chambers. The Joint Recreational Authority will meet Wednesday, March 5th at 7 p.m. in the chambers. The Parks and Recreation Commission will meet Thursday, March 6th at 6:30 in the chambers. And the DDA Finance Committee will meet Friday, March 7th at 9:30 in the committee room.
Thank you. And if you could keep it going, Sarah, we'll have you continue with the consent calendar, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission. And such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of February 18th, 2025 and February 24th, 2025 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. 2, consideration of waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing the retention of Kevin Schumacher for special legal services associated with oil and gas matters as recommended by the City Attorney and as required by City Charter. And consideration of authorizing the related legal services agreement. Approval recommended.
Okay. Does any commissioner want any item pulled from the consent calendar? Go ahead.
I have a quick question on number 2.
Okay. Do you want it pulled, or is it something that you think could be answered and you wouldn't have to pull it?
Let's go ahead and pull
Okay,
it.
no problem. We'll
Thank
pull
you.
number 2. Any others? Any member of the public need anything pulled other than consent item number 2, which has already been pulled? Okay, seeing none, bring it back for a motion.
I move that the consent calendar be approved as amended.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And so we'll open up with 2. Jackie, you had some questions?
Yes, I wondered what the term of the agreement is. Is it a one-year contract renewable annually, or did I just miss that info?
No, it's just a retainer agreement and it's ongoing. And the reason for that is because it's very few and far between when we need these services. Commissioner Shaw asked some questions this afternoon, and I dug back in the file. We had retained Mr. Chambers in 2010 was the most recent agreement, but I believe that he was retained before that already because I had found some things in my file that were from him from even before that. But we had 2 invoices in between 2010 and now for his services. The thing about these leases and these this type of law is it's very specialized, and there are very few attorneys that do it. I called
a few of them trying to find somebody, and I've been looking for a while, and many of them even had conflicts. So I was very excited to find somebody that could do this work. And so I don't expect that it will even come close to the limit each year. I just need to have somebody kind of on call. So when something does come up, there's a couple things that are kind of coming up down the pike right now with the new property that's going to be acquired next to Brown Bridge and so forth, that I will need to kind of kick to this person. And then we may not hear from them or need to use their services for a number of years even. But it's important to have somebody that we can reach out to when something comes up.
Thank you.
Tim?
Since you were talking about the new acquisition of property, do we as a city own the mineral rights under that property? And does anybody else have rights to those minerals?
That is to be determined. I'm working through that right now. So the way that the grant works for acquiring that property is that we have to work through all of the title work and all of those types of issues on the front end, the environmental work, and then we can enter into a purchase agreement. We are not allowed to do that until that front end work of the grant has been done. And so that was one of the things that I spoke with the current property owners council about already, because there was a question about that. And it also plays into the grant. The grant, now I'm reaching in the cobwebs, so forgive me, I might have this backwards, but the grant, I think, either requires the city to acquire the oil and gas rights or not. There's something in the grant about that. So that's something that we're going to have to work through.
We have more questions or a motion? Go ahead, Jackie.
I move that the competitive bidding process be waived and that the city commission approves the retention of Kevin Schumacher of Glosson, Reed, McLean, Campbell, and Schumacher for professional legal services for oil and gas matters as recommended by the city attorney and as required by the city charter at the rate of $450 per hour in a not-to-exceed annual amount of $10,000 with funds available in the city attorney budget.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioners Anderson and Stanley. Actually, I just had a quick question, not against this, but so because the motion is $450 an hour and then not to exceed 10,000, does that lock them into the duration of the retainer at that rate too?
Yeah, if they were going to want to change their rates, we'd have to come back to you for that.
Okay, great. And I just say that's kind of an advantage because I think the last time we used it, I think we were being billed at $250 an hour.
$250 an hour in
And so
2010.
Locking in that nice low rate right now might not be terrible either. Any further
I
comments?
thought it was $450. It's not.
It was, the previous one before it, because it was in like 2014 or something, was 250.
Yeah, okay.
So, we might look at this again in 5 to 10 years, someone might, and be really pleased
I
that we
see.
got 450 at the time. Any other questions or comments from the commission on this? Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to old business now with the West Front Street improvements. So, I don't know, Liz, did you want to kick this off?
Thank you, Mayor
see
Shamrock. Yeah,
Ann
this has
here.
been before the board multiple times. We had a study session last week. And so I didn't receive any more questions today from commissioners. And so at this point, the staff is just ready for the commission's deliberation and action on whether or not to move forward.
And we have any questions? Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, it seems like there's some confusion about the function of the planters and the function of the guardrail. The guardrail is a motor vehicle barrier. It's like a safety barrier. The planters are for traffic calming, right? What is the problem that we're trying to solve here? I think it's speed, isn't it? People are going too fast through there.
Safety.
But, yes, it's a safety problem, but it's caused by excessive speed, right?
What I would say is that this got brought forward, speed, yes, but also the car that went into someone's
You know,
home. so.
at this point, I don't have any trouble with putting
Yeah.
in the guard. If those houses are very close to the road, I'm not going to argue with the guardrail. But I am going to argue about the planters, because I think that, you're protecting those homes from a car going into their walls, but you're not, by removing the planters, you're taking away a traffic calming device. And I think that digging up all of that for landscaping and irrigation, I mean, I don't see any cost breakdown of what that's going to be. I don't see what the point is. The planters have been working just fine. But the planters are sitting there looking dead for 9 months out of the year, which is not very convenient. But what about if, I'm looking at that, it's 15,000, it's $18,566 is what they're proposing to dig up that median, take those planters out, put some bushes in there or something. What if we approached the Arts Commission and asked them to put on an RFP for $15,000 to put something permanent in those planters that maybe had solar hooked up to it, so it lit up, and it became, as Commissioner Treadwell mentioned at the last meeting, a welcoming, something welcoming, you know, you are in the city of Traverse City. And it would be traffic calming, and it would be a welcome to Traverse City kind of invitation. I think that the argument that the planters are, if they're hit, they become airborne and fly into, you know, the right-of-way is irrelevant because the car will be in the right-of-way. So I don't know what you're talking about with the planters. Hasn't ever happened before. But that's my solution to this problem. You know, we just had an RFP go out a few months ago for mural painting for a mural festival on 8th Street. It's like between $5,000 and $7,000 to come and paint a wall on 8th Street. There were 104 applicants from across the world. I think that we could get something really interesting in there. You know, you would sink them into those planters, make it permanent, and make it interesting and creative, which is Tim Werner's word. So that's what I have to say about that.
Commissioner Stanley, you had your hand up?
Only just because I do think traffic calming is an important element of what we want to do in this corridor. My concern is that we have been informed that these planters are not appropriate objects to have in the right-of-way. We've been given the reasons why that's the case. If they could be maintained and they were appropriate for that purpose, I think that would be just fine. But we are now in this case, in this circumstances where we have been informed that this is not, they're not engineered for this purpose. They are not anchored, and whether or not it has happened, it could happen. And if that happens, we've been told that they shouldn't be there. And does that then open up the liability issue that was brought up previously about going against engineer recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly appreciate the idea of traffic calming and having a creative and attractive entrance there. I think if you left it more wide open and maybe not attached to the planters and said, hey, Arts Commission, let's have the Arts Commission work with the engineers and come up with something that is, you know, appropriate for a right-of-way, that I think that's a great idea. I'm just concerned with, you know, the engineers having said, and the carrier having said, it's not, that's not a solution for a right-of-way. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, but it is a solution for a right-of-way. And Jessica Carpenter, who used to work in our engineering department, as an engineer, is the individual who helped get those planters and make them a reality. And yet we as a city took no initiative to reach out to her. She's still local, works for MDOT, to have a discussion about how was it that those came to be. Instead, we take the word of Hubble, Roth, and Clark, who stands up there, and they're highway engineers, and they say, whoa, you can't have these, this is a liability. And then our city attorney goes ultra conservative and says, no, we may not have anything in the right-of-way that's an immobile hazard. We have street trees all through our city that are immobile. You look at any of these mature maple trees, they're in the right-of-way. So now I've said it in public, we know we have these hazards in the right-of-way, in the clear zone. Is that a liability? Do we have to cut all those down? Do we have to have a plan in the next 5 years to remove all of our street trees? Like, this is so detached from reality. The point of those planters was traffic calming, and it was done by real engineers, real city engineers right here in Traverse City. And now we've outsourced it to Hubble, Roth, and Clark after the initial discussion was about a guardrail in front of a home or two, and that became a guardrail all the way around the bend to protect drivers from themselves when they can't drive appropriately. And then Hubble, Roth, and Clark said, oh, in addition, you have to get rid of these planters. It's just crazy.
So I'm going to say, based on both what Commissioner Shaw and our city attorney have said, that we haven't made a motion yet. I think that motion could be easily made to include sending that money to the Arts Commission, as Commissioner Shaw suggested, to find a better traffic calming there. I really don't understand personally the love of these, as was pointed out by Commissioner Shaw, urns that sit empty 9 months of the year when we could do something way better as a better welcome to have there. They're not affixed to anything. They haven't become projectiles yet. But as we're learning right now in these times and the timeline we live on, what we never thought could happen keeps happening. And that opens liability. And I think that the Arts Commission has done a great job, as was mentioned with mural festivals and everything else, of finding really creative things to do with our city spaces. And so I'm advising, since we don't have a motion yet, and I don't want to get us into debate versus having a motion on the floor to discuss a motion, that if someone wanted to make the motion, I'm sure that Sarah and/or Lauren could help make that motion to read the $15,000 for design and 10% contingency be awarded to the Arts Commission to find a welcoming, traffic calming measure for that space. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, just to be clear here, these are still, these are like bollards. You're going to have to fix them in there.
Right.
But it is a city street. It is not a highway. You are only supposed to be traveling 25 miles an hour in that area. So I think that it is perfectly legal from the engineering point of view to place a fixed item in the middle of a separated street.
A fixed item, yes. And so I would say, again, that would get into what the Arts Commission could work with the engineering department to make sure that the bids coming in are, legal, basically, and open up the field wide for what could be there.
Yeah, my understanding was the problem with the pots was that they're not fixed.
They're not fixed.
And so, I think that the engineering department can easily come up with some parameters to work with the Arts
So we
Commission
just
on.
drill some holes in the bottom of the pot and bolt them to the
Well,
road.
I'm not prepared to sit here and engineer. That's way outside my wheelhouse. I can't even do math. So, yeah, I have confidence in the ability of the engineering department to work with the Arts Commission on something like that.
Commissioner Stanley?
I'm happy to make the motion that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract amendment with Hubble, Roth, and Clark, Inc., HRC, an amount not to exceed $22,720.50 for added design and contract management of the West Front Street Safety Improvements Project, and an additional $15,000 to be designated for the Arts Commission to work in collaboration with engineering for design and surveying for a median art installation plan with a 10% contingency of $3,566 for a total in added cost of $39,221, with such amendment subject as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with funds therefore available in the traffic calming grant account, not
Support.
the Arts Commission budget.
That was really good. Most of it.
We'll give you a minute to formulate. Did we have a second? Mr. Treadwell, thank you. Mr. Warner?
Yeah, how much have we spent on Hubble, Roth, and Clark to date for West Front Street?
I don't have that number in front of me, but I can certainly
Ballpark?
get it. I don't have that
Like
number in front of me.
from when this was in front of us back in
I can
2024?
quickly look that up while Sarah's,
That would be great, because
for the
Now
original
we're-
contract?
the original
one that was
contract
awarded?
that got us till last week.
Okay, sure, let me look that up.
Because now we're proposing to spend an additional 39,000, and this is just for design still. And then the actual work is estimated at $83,000. So,
Well, real quick, 15,000 plus the contingency of that is going to the Arts Commission now, not Tubble, Roth, and Clark.
yeah, but it's all for this project. So we're past $120,000. And how is that benefiting the citizens of Traverse City? Like, this isn't just a local thing, but this is a national, like, what are we doing that's benefiting taxpayers, essentially? Not visitors to our city, et cetera. But money's fungible. Like, back to the initial concern about speed and running into people's yards, like, what were the alternatives that were looked at that we could actually do and address that? And spend $100,000 elsewhere in the city on things that people can be thankful for and say, wow, the city actually did that, and I appreciate it. I'm just putting it out there for anybody watching at home. Like, this is a huge waste of money. We'll be approaching $150,000 to do this work.
The original agreement from March of this year was a not-to-exceed amount of $14,700, or $14,470.50. I'm not sure how much of that has been paid. I'd have to look into the
Okay,
system.
so we'll be at $135,000 roughly, because a car went off the road and broke through somebody's fence, which, yes, should be addressed, but
So hold
there's
on.
a lot of cars that have gone off the city streets at 25 miles per hour.
So we're saying it was 14,000 and change, and now it's 39 and change, and that equals 150,000?
No, this is all for design. To actually do the work, if you scroll to what was presented last week, that's $82,700.
For the road, okay, thank you. I thought you were implying that we paid that much to Hubble, Roth, and Clark directly. Thank you. Go ahead, Jackie.
I'd like to continue with the issue of cost effectiveness that Commissioner Werner raised. I, too, was concerned that the $39,221 didn't even include installation or implementation of this design. I also noted in the materials from last week that the most cost-effective solutions seemed to be not the roadside barrier, but the signage, the pavement markings, and the lighting. And in last week's conversation, I thought I had received assurance from the city engineer that lighting was going to be part of the proposal, but I don't see it here. So at this point, I'm...
The lighting
I'm-
proposal?
That lighting, because of its cost effectiveness in the HRC report, was going to become part of the plan.
I'd have to look back at the meeting from last week, but I recall our engineer saying that that was something to consider in the future, but not as a part of this plan. That's what I recall.
So
I do too.
future being this week or future being years from now is the
It
question.
just wasn't a part of this scope. That's.
Heather, you had your hand up?
Didn't I hear that there have actually been, was it 9?
Yeah, but
Accidents?
only one left the roadway eastbound
the-
and went
through the
into
barrier.
into one of those yards, into the new homes there.
Yeah, I just don't know how to, I mean, it's happened I don't know how to get away from that barrier. Since it's happened once, it could happen again.
Bollards,
It's
granite
really
blocks,
hard to get
there are
away
all
from
sorts
that
of,
barrier.
like NACTO, we could go with NACTO instead of a highway association's recommendations.
That was covered last week, though, and the recommendation for this was so that you weren't hitting a hard thing like a bollard and,
That would throw the car back out into the street.
well, that would crash the car versus redirecting it.
And the art installation, I'm hoping will include light. I want the RFP to include
Definitely good.
light. I know, it's a lot of money, but with that many accidents in that tiny little area of street, I feel like we gotta do something. And if I lived in a house on that curve, I'm not feeling safe.
No, I'm not opposed to something that protects the yards in those homes. And that's what the whole discussion back in 2024 started as. But then with Hubble, Roth, and Clark and their highway engineers, they looked at it and said, oh, you need a guardrail all the way up around the bend here to protect drivers from themselves. I don't agree. Like speed limit 25, let's actually do real traffic calming that, so the design is for 25 miles per hour. Right now, it's designed for much faster.
But this got brought up last week too, that the design is this width of the street is part of it. And what is being proposed here is to deal with the width of the street we have. To redesign the street and rebuild the street would be way more than what we're talking about spending right now.
It doesn't, if you look through NACTO papers and reports, it doesn't require digging up and redoing a street. There are all sorts of creative ways to effectively and physically narrow what exists.
Do we have any further questions or comments on this? Commissioner Heather, I really appreciate your ideas already that you're on the Arts Commission representing us if this does go through to aid in this becoming a good piece there. So thank you for your ideas already.
Yeah, it seems that we need to find a better traffic engineering firm that actually deals with cities and not highways. And so that we don't get ourselves in this bind over and over again. So wherever engineering is, please look around and find somebody who deals with streets and not highways.
Mitch, you have your hand up.
Yes, as I remarked previously, this came before us as a measure of safety and traffic calming, but I also see it, especially if we're looking at replacing the median planters with something that does meet safety standards, as forming, beyond just signage, a gateway to the city. If you're coming around that curve, there isn't a change from you come from a rural area and now there's a house every 50 feet. There is commercial development along both sides of the road. We do have a four-way stop at the first intersection, but that is 100 yards into the city. So having something in that median space and or along the edges of the road that serves as a visual distinction for you have entered Traverse City, I would say is worthwhile and should be considered a reasonable cost.
Thank you. Before we open up for public comment, Sarah, I was just going to have you give a stab at the motion so both we know what we're voting on and the public knows what we're voting on.
Please feel free to correct me. Okay, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract amendment with Hubble, Roth, and Clark, Inc., HRC, in an amount not to exceed $22,720.50 for added design contract management of the West Front Street Safety Improvement Project, and an additional $15,000 to be designated for Arts Commission for art design of the traffic calming design and surveying for median landscaping plan with 10% contingency of $3,566 for a total in added cost of $39,221 with such amendment subject to its substance by the city manager and its form by city attorney with funds therefore available in the traffic calming grant account.
Does that sound legally flexible for Arts Commission basically doing something there?
It sounded, I think that Commissioner
Probably don't need
Hanley had
surveying in there.
something
Yeah, we don't
there
want surveying probably in there.
about,
I can get rid of that.
had something about Arts Commission in
conjunction.
collaboration with the
Engineering, yeah.
engineering department or something like that.
Good memory.
For for, I think, an art installation.
Yeah, I think that.
Okay, yeah.
Of the traffic calming. Art design for the median or something like that? Is that
Yeah.
what was said?
As
You
long
might
as
have to read it again, Sarah.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
was gonna say, as long as legally to you it says the Arts Commission and engineering can work on this with this budget, and,
Yeah, we are providing broad flexibility as to.
well, this, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I wanna make sure we're not binding ourselves in a corner, but also not making it useless by being too broad.
Traffic calming art design for the median landscaping plan.
Okay,
Yes.
let's try that one more time from the top.
Want to read it one more time, sir?
Why not?
Sorry.
That the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract amendment with Hubble, Roth, and Clark, gonna skip a couple words here, in an amount not to exceed $22,720.50 for added design and contract management of the West Front Street Safety Improvement Project, and an additional $15,000 to be designated for Arts Commission in collaboration with the Engineering Department for the traffic calming art design for the median landscaping plan, with a 10% contingency of $3,566 for a total in added costs of $39,221, with such amendment subject as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with funds therefore available in the traffic calming grant account.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that work. And with that, I will open it up to any public comment. Feel free to approach the podium. And Sarah, do you want to do the rules? Sorry, Karen, we know you know the rules, but we're going to have her read them really quickly. Sorry, but you can still approach. I just wanted to give her a chance to read them into the record.
We ask that you state your name and address and indicate if you are a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time is elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
Perfect. Thank you.
Karen Nielsen, 1223 Randolph Street, city resident. I live not more than 2 blocks from that area you're talking about, and I hear what you're talking about, but I think you're missing an awful lot about that particular piece of ground. And that is, what you've got is this big curve, and you've got all these people pouring down from the hills at large speeds, not 25, not anywhere near it. And they have a bend where it's blind, where they go around and then they see that stop sign. So doing traffic calming, and I don't care what you put up, they need to have signs back around the bend so they can be braking before they get to that bend and then fly into the house or fly into each other or whatever the heck they're going to do. That house that nearly got hit does need some kind of a guardrail or barrier, because the way the houses were built, the setbacks that our zoning allowed, ideally those houses should have been back an extra 10 or 20 feet, because that house is in danger of being crashed into. So the city, as a minimum, should do something to protect that house. But any other things with, I'm sorry, planters, artwork, signs, no. It's useless to put it that close to that intersection. You need to go back around the bend, probably signs, I don't know what you need, but you got to work further back, because it's too late by the time they get to that bend. So in my opinion, it'd be largely a waste of money. The planters that are there now, all that kind of stuff, you got to slow people down back further.
Thank you,
And
Karen.
they do come piling through there very fast. And they go right through the intersection often. Their enforcement might help.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment on this item?
Justin Reed, 630 Coyote Drive, apartment 1B, city resident. So I did look at the study that we had last time with this, and it's add diagrams of the variable speed limit signs that would be put upon the curve right there, coming from the hill down. Because right now there is no signage that kind of indicates that, hey, there's a stop sign up ahead. And also, as you guys were talking about the speed limit. Now, I did see on 7, upon the pieces of paper, if upon investigation, the State Transportation Department or County Road Commission, the Department of State Police find the interest of public safety, they may order township, city, or village officials to erect and maintain, take down, or regulate speed limit signs, signals, or devices as directed. So pretty much, it's saying that the city does not have the control over the speed limit. The Michigan State Police and the state transportation department can come to the city and say, this is what we have. This is what our final recommendation is. You have to follow it, or your municipality can go ahead and argue from the 85th percentile to the 5th percentile, but it has to demonstrate that the 50 percentile is safer going down the road. So that's what this new provision is with the state law. But yeah, there's no indication in here that says the city has the ultimate control on the speed limits. That goes for the fact that people usually complain about the speed limits, but the city can argue with it. But the State Department, the State Transportation Department, and also the Michigan State Police can say, no, this is the recommended speed limit. You're going to have to follow it. But if you argue about it, we can take our stab at it and look at the 50th percentile. But the engineering department has to go ahead and demonstrate that that is safer versus what the 85th percentile is. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? Bring it back. I know that last week, as part of the discussion, it was mentioned that because our city limit is so close to that, I think Jackie'd asked some good questions about looking at things further up the road. As our chief is here today, maybe with one of those machines that, or those things that come out and sit. I know we have it on the speed limit sign in the city, one that's permanently affixed there, but if maybe we could work with the township or the county to occasionally even do something like that rather than a full road study, and have it on regular rotation through there to remind people not to speed as much too, as well as some of these other efforts we're doing for what's outside of our jurisdiction, but with our partners without going full MDOT on us. So, Mitch?
Yeah, so there is a bit of room. I find inconsistencies depending on which map I'm looking at, but the median doesn't go quite to the city limits. There is maybe 50 feet, maybe 100 yards to the west of the city. The space that's the median does become a left turn lane, and there are driveways on the south side, so engineering would have to say if that median could be extended and how far, but it is something that we might be able to work with.
Oh, that's for future. This is what we got now. So go ahead, Heather.
There is a sign, this is your speed sign sitting out there for eastbound traffic right now, which
Right.
is not functional.
Oh, it's not functional right now?
No, it is
Thank you for that
not.
report.
But did I misunderstand that more of the accidents were happening for westbound traffic? So I'm assuming people are in town drinking and then heading home.
Oh.
So it really needs to be taken care of from both sides. Maybe one of those, this is your speed, this is 25 miles an hour, and upcoming stop sign. Because I looked at all the arrows in the Hubble-Roth.
HRC.
Hubble-Roth. And I found them confusing. I feel like there's way too many arrows they're trying to add. It's just going to distract drivers. But it would seem like just one of those signs. This is your speed. It's 25 miles an hour. And there's an upcoming stop sign would be more effective. But
Great.
you have to take care of it from both sides, because if people are speeding out of town because they've drunk too much, it's got to be on
Or,
both sides.
yeah, or other things, but that definitely could be a factor. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the question right now then. So now that we have the motion defined, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes?
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Motion passes. And we'll move on to item number 2, discussion of the lapse control order of the 1,700 to 2,000 blocks of East Front Street. Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you. So in your packet is a memo written by our Assistant City Manager, who's been handling our traffic committee and these TCOs. And she's been doing an excellent job with the team of putting them all, gathering all the ones that sort of fell through the wayside for a variety of reasons and getting them on agendas and moving them through. This one was a little confusing. So we put together a memo kind of explaining the long and sordid history of a variety of TCOs that have come out of this area. But the staff, in making sure that their recommendation was sound when this item was pulled from the agenda in December, they actually surveyed 43 property owners about this TCO in the blocks of 1,600 to 2,000 of East Front Street. 100 Winona and 100 East Bay Boulevard, 1600 Indian Woods, and 1700 Apache Pass. So the recommendation is to allow this TCO to lapse and revert it back to previously approved TCOs 432 and 168. And I don't see them in the packet, but I think they were in the original packet from when this was brought before the board. So a lot of things have happened for a lot of different reasons over time, and, you know, we've got a new team trying to understand our processes and understand these different TCOs. So it is the recommendation to allow this TCO to lapse and revert back.
And so if we don't do anything tonight, that is what will happen? Okay. Commissioners, any commissioners' comments? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I was the one that brought this up. And having talked, not specifically about this in the past month, but previously talked to former city manager Lewis, because he lives in that neighborhood. Some of those initial TCOs, one from 1979 and 99, or whatever the dates were, 168, 432, were largely to prevent NMC students from parking on Eastern Avenue. I think we're past that. I personally have nothing against NMC students. I don't think anybody here does, but the street is a public asset to be used, and we, from time to time, talk about parked cars as traffic calming. Yeah, sometimes people don't like other people parking in their neighborhood, but the street does not belong to the neighborhood. The street belongs to the city and to everybody in the city. And so I would like to see that asset be used by whether it's NMC staff, students, faculty, and whichever traffic control order that is. I would rather see more parking than less.
Go ahead, Jackie.
If we could ask that the missing memo from Nicole Van Ness could be distributed to the commission, I would appreciate that. And just in terms of the student parking, I agree with Commissioner Werner in principle. I believe that this action will still retain the parking signage along on the portion of East Front Street that actually borders NMC's campus, which limits parking to 2-hour maximums. I don't think that those signs are being impacted by this.
Okay, maybe I have it mixed up then.
But, you know, I can give you a report as someone who lives close by, and there has not been student parking pressure in that neighborhood since pre-pandemic.
So, sorry, I was trying to track between what we remembered and were sure and weren't sure. So are you recommending that this be allowed to expire, or are you saying,
I
oops,
am
sorry, because the
recommending-
parking is there for that
yes.
intended purpose?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the insight from the neighborhood. Okay, so we'd like the memo passed around, though, from the original to the commission. At this time, though, nobody has any action they'd like to take, just to clarify. Okay. Anything else on this agenda item? Seeing none, and there was no motion with this, so there's nothing to open up. We'll move on to item number 3, which is an update of the wastewater treatment plant's UV upgrade and improvement. I believe Art directly, or do we want to?
Sure, I would just like to introduce our Director of Municipal Utilities, Art Krieger. Thank you for being here.
You bet. Good evening, everyone. Art Krieger, Director of Municipal Utilities with the city. This project at the wastewater treatment plant for the improvements is approaching final design. We're over 90% through the design process now. And our goal tonight is just to give you an update of where we are and how things have progressed since we last discussed this. And I have with us tonight remotely Doug Urquhart. He's with Hubble Roth Clark, and he's been our consultant on this project, looking after city matters through the design process. A lot of good input from them. And we have Mark Huggard here as well from Jacobs. He's the project manager at the wastewater treatment plant. And we also have some other team members that have logged in from the design build team. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Doug.
Okay, thanks, Art. And Sarah, I'm going to try to present our PowerPoint. This works.
We can see the PowerPoint.
You can see the PowerPoint, great. Yes, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to present the status of the primary treatment and UV improvements project. As already indicated, we wanted to use this opportunity to update the City Commission and City on the status and schedule of the progressive design build progress. As you recall, in June last year, we presented the alternative analysis report and then the decisions made from that process. And so just to refresh everybody, the progressive design build preliminary stage is pretty much the design stage, which is the development of the design plans as well as the guaranteed maximum price. And so the design build team consists of CCC and Fleece and Vandenbrink, F&B, and other members of the team within the city, Jacobs, and HRC, who's acting as the owner's rep. And so just as a reminder, the project goals are to replace the aging primary treatment, address deficiencies with UV, that's part of the ECO administrative consent order, as well as increase reliability of the treatment processes, improve hydraulics and process efficiencies. In terms of the areas covered, I'm going to go to the next slide just to go over the site plan. So the project scope includes the improvements to the pre-treatment processes that handle the wastewater before it's treated in the membrane bioreactors, MBRs. And so that includes preliminary screening, replacing the preliminary screening, which is the core screening for removal of larger materials, grit removal, which separates sand, sediment, other higher density particles from the waste stream, primary treatment or primary settling tanks. These are processes to remove suspended solids and divert those to the anaerobic digesters. And these are the 8 horizontal tanks or rectangular tanks constructed in 1932 and 57. They're original to, the 4 center ones are original to the plant. And then after that, the water is pumped, primary effluent pumping to the MBR process, and where biological treatment and separation of solids for the creation of a very high quality permeate. And then the last component is UV disinfection, which is used to provide disinfection of the permeate before discharge to the Boardman River. This is one of the isometric drawings prepared by the design build team of the headworks screening and grit process. It's going to be basically one building with redundant core screens, redundant grit removal processes, and the stack tray grit system. It's one of the highest efficient technologies on the market, and it's going to provide much more robust removal of grit and improve the maintenance of the plant. In the alternatives analysis, one of the main decisions was to go forward with the 2 new circular clarifiers. This provides improved flow separation with only 2 tanks and better flow control and process control. And one of the things that's come up with the design is just due to the footprint of the site, it's very, as you know, it's a very tight site. And so the designing around high groundwater conditions requires a thicker concrete footing to accommodate for the buoyancy concerns for the structural design of those tanks. The next isometric shown here is the primary effluent pumps. And in this, with 2 of the 3 pumps will be replaced. Pump 1 was replaced in 2021. And again, these are the pumps that take the water from the primary settling to the existing fine screen building. And then last, ultraviolet disinfection. This isometric shows the 4 UV banks using the existing channels, but elevating those channels to install the newer, more efficient horizontal array. And this, as just to remind everyone, this addresses the hydraulic and treatment requirements that were required in the administrative consent order, the ACO. And so next, I want to update everybody on the 90% cost estimate or budget update. And so overall, the estimated cost of the project is $36.748 million. And that includes a 2% contingency, although up to 6% is allowed by the Eagle SRF program. And the final guaranteed maximum price is dependent on the bidding of the subtrades. So this is, a 90% cost estimate, but it does require bidding, and which would occur next month. So just to go through the schedule, we've gone through the preliminary stage design. The design build team's in the process. They're completing the final design this month with a submittal to Eagle for the final Part 41 construction permit. And then following that, it's a little bit different because it's a design build, progressive design build. The individual subcontractor trade packages are bid out, and that includes electrical, mechanical, concrete, and other trades. And that would happen in April with the guaranteed maximum price. Basically, the progressive design build team takes all those trade packages, prepares guaranteed maximum price, which is the number that would be included on the tentative award. And as part of the CWSRF program, the next step would be for the commission to prepare a resolution of tentative award for that guaranteed maximum price. And that's tentatively scheduled for May 2025, May 19th, 2025. And as part of the SRF program, the loan would close for 3rd quarter financing July 2025, and then issuing a contract amendment shortly after, with construction commencing in fall 2025 and lasting through the summer of 2028. And then the next slide, I just wanted to, during the alternatives analysis report, we did discuss, or the design build team did discuss some of the project sustainability goals. And so many of the alternatives were selected for where applicable for energy usage and carbon footprint. And then some of the other sustainability goals during construction could be sustainable building materials, low carbon concrete, using recycled materials, and also recycling during construction. So diverting materials from site to recycle centers as appropriate. So with that, I want to thank you again for your time, and I guess I can hand it back to Art and we can take any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Art?
So just basically, we'd like to open it up for questions. We'll try to answer what we can. If you have any, if we don't have the answer, we'll work hard to get them back to you.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I've been receiving some questions from the public about capacity. And am I correct in understanding that this is a project that will primarily improve performance and efficiency and reduce cost, as opposed to expand the capacity of the plant?
That is correct. We are not expanding the capacity overall. We're making the processes that are antiquated more efficient and updating pretty much the front half of the plant. So yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tim?
Not a question, just it can't be, to me, it can't be repeated too many times, and Art, correct me on the numbers, I think you said them recently again, but typical flow to our wastewater treatment plant, and especially this time of year, is about 4 million gallons a day.
I'm
Close
gonna
enough?
Confirm.
Close
with
enough?
Mark. Yep.
And peak
close enough.
flow of actual sanitary sewerage is about 8 million gallons a day on a whatever type of day in the year. But with big rain events and I, we've been up as high as 17 million gallons a day. Close enough? So
For a period of a day,
for
not
a
whole
short
day,
period with a rain event. But to me, what we're up against from, it's not growth, what we're up against is our aging pipes in the ground, because it's the rain events that are going to get us. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, whatever. It's not an additional house or hotel or that sort of thing, because we're well under what the plant can handle when it's not raining and the groundwater's not up. So, thank you for bearing with me.
Go ahead, Jackie.
And the guaranteed maximum price, which is going to be available soon, at some point we'll be able to translate that into annual costs for debt service to
Correct.
the city. It's premature to ask about that now, right?
Well, I can share some information with you I just received today from our financial advising group. And I asked them to put a 20-year amortization schedule together for this project for about 40 to 40, I think it was 41 million is where we had the estimate before we passed, or you as a body passed the ceiling for bond amount. So just under 42 million. And it was a 2.65 million per year would be an annual payment after like the third year. The first 2 to 3 years, you only pay interest, and it's less than that amount. And you, the CWSRF project financing is when you close on the loan, you don't get all the money up front like you would in a bond closing. You draw from the amount and you pay interest on what you borrowed. So that's an advantage too for the city. We're not going with the full amount right away. We're going to draw as we need it and as we build this project. So in comparison, we did a 20-year loan in the early 2000s that was just paid off in 2022 at the wastewater plant for the membrane process when that was implemented. And that annual payment was about 2.3 million. And that has dropped off. So you kind of see the difference between the two. I don't know the number in my head, but it's not more than, millions of dollars. It's
Thank you, that
Sure.
helps.
okay.
Any other questions right now? Go ahead, Heather.
Just to go back to Commissioner Werner's comment about it's the pipes in the ground that are the aging pipes. The city is working on those
Absolutely.
every single year.
We are. We just are, in fact, next meeting on the 17th of this month, I'm planning to bring a lining project to you for approval. We bid this out last month, and we have it budgeted for this year up to $1.2 million to focus on lining bad pipes on the west trunk line in the west side of town, which is where we've seen the most impacts from I&I.
It's that soggy ground over there. What's the percentage of pipes that still need to be, that are in peril of leak? I mean, we don't want, what happened in Detroit last month was
Yeah, that was a water
truly
main.
awful.
That was
Yeah,
awful.
I don't think
agree.
we have any 52-inch pipes around here, but
No. That's a tough question off the top of my head. We did have the SAW grant, in 2017, that was evaluated, half of the system at least. There's some good information in that report that I don't have memorized, but we have a fair share of clay pipe from,
Still around.
before the 1950s out
do you
there.
work on a percentage, like you try and get a percentage done every year, or it's just, how does that
This
work?
is one of the first, well, this is probably the second lining project of sanitary that I've worked on. The first one was down on Front Street from the Parkway into the lift station, Front Street lift station right across from Bubba's. And that was a very high INI segment of pipe. It's larger diameter. It's like 24-inch sanitary, and it carried a lot of the whole east side of town flow into that pump station there on Front Street. And it was noted as like the worst of the worst areas. We were letting in all kinds of water and extra flow. So that was done in around 2020. This next project we're going to do this year is about 6,900 feet, so it's a significant project. And that's going to be anywhere from a 8-inch to a 15-inch diameter pipe segments that were noted in that SAW grant as recommended areas to fix.
Okay.
And then my goal would be to bring a budgeted amount every year forward, and we just work on lining across town, you know, as we can, and keep that momentum going. Because we know the lake level and the groundwater are going to come up sooner than later. So we want to be as prepared as we can.
Thank you.
Other questions? Looks like we're good for right now. Thank you, Art. I know this is
Great.
a big undertaking. Thank you for everybody joining us online as well. We always appreciate the efforts to do the tech coordination,
Yes.
and this one worked out well. So,
Great.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'll give Sarah a second to shut it down, since I don't think the people online want to hear us talk about our irrigation project. All right, with that, we'll move on to new business and consideration of waiving competitive bidding for irrigation on Grandview Parkway. And Liz, you want to kick it off?
Thank you, Mayor Shamrow. Yep, this evening to answer questions, we have Michelle Hunt, our superintendent of our Parks Division. This is regarding Phase 2 of Grandview Parkway, and I believe a similar item of this nature was brought to you during Phase 1. This would be to waive the bid waiver request and to contract with Elmer's, Team Elmer's, who's already on site, to do the irrigation at around the same time as the construction is taking place.
Hi, thank you. I'm Michelle Hunt, the Parks and Recreation Superintendent. I helped with engineering, manage the project last year, and if there are any questions regarding what's in front of you tonight, I'm happy to answer those.
And this is, if I remember correctly, when we did it last time, it was Team Elmer's because they're already going to be in there and working, and if we got in somebody else, it would be a new subcontractor under a contractor that we'd be paying to do the work. Was that kind of the gist of it last time?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do we have questions? Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with the north and south side of the parkway. I do have an issue with median. What is the plan for the median? I happened to be driving down the parkway today, and I noticed that someone was putting in irrigation on the Phase 1, and it's all lawn. Is that the plan?
Someone was putting in irrigation on Phase 1, you said?
Yeah, somebody was putting irrigation under the sod.
On the medians?
On the median, on the Phase 1 part.
Okay. So in the center islands, there's going to be irrigation. There's turf and trees. And I do not believe, but I'd have to look at the landscaping plans, if any of the landscaping plans include, like how in front of the Hotel Indigo, instead of it being turf, it's all going to be individual native plants. So it's just a little different. There's not going to be trees. There's going to be the native plants. So I'd have to look to refresh my memory if any of the medians are going to be consistent with that, or if they are turf and trees. But from what I know that there are other sections of this plan that include not just turf, but also plants, and that's on the north side of the parkway.
Right, not in the median.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just, irrigation is the #1 source of water use in the United States, #1. And in places like LA and Phoenix, they're running out of water, and it's not because people take long showers or flush their toilets too often. It's because of agricultural irrigation. And I know we have a lot of water around here, and so it's like, what's the big deal? But in fact, we are in a moderate drought here in Traverse City, and just to the west of us along the shore, they are in a severe drought. I know, it sounds crazy, but it's true. I feel that turf, or I'm going to call it lawn, is non-productive. It's a waste of water, and it's a waste of space. And also, I think it's dangerous. It makes the median look like parkland, and we have been reminded repeatedly that it is not parkland. It's an invitation when you put just turf in there, even if you've got trees sprouting out of it, for people to try and run across the parkway and use it as a pedestrian refuge to get to the other side. I have another creative solution. Don't irrigate it and put rocks in there. This area has gorgeous rocks. You've got basalts that came down, that is volcanic rock that came out of the mid-continental rift. And then you've got they're black and red. You've got jasper, you've got granite, pink, yellow, green. They all came down with the glaciers. You've got a whole bunch of limestone and all these crazy shapes. Since this is a Parks and Recs CIP, this was on your CIP request. Possibly you could use a couple of boulders on the north and south side of the parkway, put some signages and talk about how these rocks got down here all the way from up northern Canada. It would be a unique solution to our unique location, and it would discourage people from trying to cross the median running across the parkway, because running on cobbles is really uncomfortable. Small to large cobbles are like 10 to 5 inches, and small boulders, they call them boulders, but they're only about 20 inches. People won't be as tempted to cross the median because it looks like parkland. It would also be relatively maintenance-free. That, I have a rock garden and I still get weeds in my rock garden, but it's nothing like a regular garden. And certainly less expensive than mowing it all the time. So I have no problem with supporting all the irrigation to the north and the south, but I do not support irrigation in the median.
Tim?
Yes, slightly different approach. I agree with what was said and like the creative ideas, but $400,000 for irrigation, I don't know what portion of that is for the medians, but myself and two others, commissioners, sit on the Brown Bridge Trust Fund ad hoc, which is tasked with bringing back potential ballot language for this November, asking the electorate to spend Brown Bridge Trust Fund dollars on parks. And that dollar amount might be 1.3 million over 5 years. And it doesn't sit well with me to be asking the electorate for 1.3 million over 5 years to spend on our parks. If we're going to approve $400,000 to irrigate turf lawn and median on a highway, like it just doesn't seem fiscally responsible to spend this much money to irrigate turf lawn to look at that's along a highway. I can't support that. I can support, as was said, irrigation in the actual parkland, used as parkland, even if it's not officially parkland, on the north and south sides of the highway, but certainly not on the median.
Okay, we've been getting into a lot of discussion without a motion, so I'm going to say that I'm leaving up to the commission that we've got a motion in the packet. We've had some people say they support it except in the median. So if somebody wants to make a motion either as is or altered, we would accept that right now to continue this conversation, or that's the conversation.
But there's money involved, so how do you?
Well, I think we would ask, are you interested in doing an alternate motion? Is that the question? Then what's in the packet, I mean, not. Okay, so you would like one that said, basically, we would like to waive the competitive bidding process, and execute a contract with Team Elmers for the north and south sides of the project. Lauren, I would ask you / staff what that cobbled portion of the 39802 might be, or would we be comfortable with a motion that was still that number, but limiting it to the north and the south only, so that then it could come under budget? Or Jackie's not in favor of that, but I also don't know what we would do.
I believe Michelle wanted to add something at an appropriate time.
Thank you. I wanted to provide clarification that the landscaping plan is something that is MDOT and Elmer's contract. It's not a city contract. So how we worked with Phase 1 for the Parkway is MDOT designed the Parkway, as we know, and then they also designed the landscaping plan, and Elmer's executed that through their contract with MDOT. So just to clarify that the changes to discuss, this isn't about the landscaping, this is about irrigating the landscaping that MDOT is already planning on, Elmer's is already planning on through their contract with MDOT. So I just thought that was helpful for clarification, that this is not about landscaping, plants, what goes where and what. It's the irrigation for what's already in place that was MDOT's plan. Does that help?
It does, but I think what we're hearing here is that the irrigation desire is for the north and south. If MDOT wants to put something in the median, that there's not a desire to pay for irrigation for the
That's right.
median,
And
is what I'm hearing.
If there's some other idea of what to put in that median later on, we can talk about that later, but I am not in favor of any irrigation in the median.
Okay. So, again, I would go back to I'm seeing Jackie shake her head no on using the 398. I guess I would look to staff for a suggestion of the motion, the altered motion that Heather is looking to make, which would be essentially what's there, but a reduced number. Or put the number in, Jackie.
I
you can
wouldn't
vote
know
no,
what that
but-
number is to offer. I apologize, I wouldn't be able to do that without,
Go
right
ahead,
here at the
Jackie.
dais.
It just seems to me that this needs to go back for verification of what the number would be, and that we take no action on it tonight.
We provided, based on the square footage, we provided Elmer's with a number like we did the first time, and the project is a design build based on what landscaping is. So in the medians, it's turf and trees, and so the irrigation plan is to support the irrigation of the trees. And then where there was more of, just native plants, like in the roundabout, you could do something like drip irrigation. So there's different styles based on what, and those are the plans that MDOT has. They provided those and got the quote. So the irrigation for the center islands is to support the watering of the trees, because that's what Elmer's is planning on putting in the center island. I'm not sure how else we would water those trees effectively after they're planted by Elmer's.
Go ahead, Tim.
I can answer the question. So we have a 12-foot wide median because MDOT refuses to make it 6 feet wide, and it's 12 feet wide so that we can pull motor vehicles, service trucks up onto it. So with a service truck pulled up onto it, tree watering bags could be attached to any trees. But even there, do we really want trees if they're just decorative and they're not actually going to be significant shade trees? So there's no way I'm supporting irrigation in the medians, no matter what MDOT thinks they're going to plant there.
So what I'm hearing from 3 commissioners is they would like this brought back with at least some numbers that would support north and south, but no median irrigation. Go ahead, Liz.
That's an option, Mayor Shamro, but the timeliness may then impact the desire of the commission to move forward with the north and the south and not the center. So I'm not sure if there would be a way to write a motion such that we move forward, there's no desire for there to be irrigation in the center, and that maybe we ask MDOT to provide a change order to Elmer's to reflect that. But I would caution bringing this back. I don't think we'd get it back in time in order to go through those different agencies, to go through MDOT, to go through Elmer's, to then come back. I think a change order, if it were approved, like as a part of this motion, would be easier to achieve, or more timely to achieve, than to bring it back
Okay.
altered.
Go ahead, Commissioner Stanley.
So I want to clarify something with Commissioner Hunt, and then I have a question. So MDOT is planning, Elmer's, through their contract with MDOT, is planning to plant some kind of vegetation in the median, which in some locations would include trees, correct?
Yes.
So if we're saying we are not approving any irrigation in the median, those trees currently would still get planted, and it would be up to the city to figure out some other way. Commissioner Warner noted we could pull up a service truck and have Parks and Rec staff do the tree watering bags. If we're going to be requesting a change order from MDOT, could we include in that not planting trees that we then have to figure out how to keep watered when we're not going to have water in the median?
Yep, certainly could.
So I'm going to look to.
None of us want to have dead trees in the median.
Right. I'm going to look to Lauren, since I think you were part of the change order discussion, of what would this motion look like to be made then of, we said it north-south with not to exceed. Is there something in the language here we have that it would be altered to say, with this, but including a change order to eliminate, or however it needs to be worded, so we could vote on it this evening and move forward. I think I would say I understand, depending on the wording, I think I have faith in Lauren. I'm giving you a minute to think while I'm talking. But I would also say that, and Elmer's is a local team that we have been very confident in their abilities and their trustworthiness. So if it's a little extra high, I don't think they're going to make up projects to fill the gap of numbers. So do you have an idea for a suggested motion?
I would just add in there to make clear that the city is approving only irrigation on the north and south sides, and then to authorize the signatories to execute any necessary documents to allow for that change to happen within the contract documents.
So the motion would be the competitive bidding process move that the competitive bidding process be waived and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract with Team Elmer's in an amount not to exceed $398,002, which includes a 10% contingency for the installation of irrigation lines on the north and south side
Of Grandview
of
Parkway
Grandview Parkway
only.
For the new and existing landscaping along the city's right-of-way on the 2025 Grandview Parkway Project Phase 2 with funds from the Capital Projects Fund. And what was the necessary document?
And that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents to change the scope items to exclude the median from the project.
Okay. And did somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley and Shaw.
Did you get that, Sarah? Give
We're
Sarah a
going
minute
to
type.
we're going to give her a minute. Okay. Any further comments, Tim?
If Art was still here, he could probably do a quick back of the envelope for us, but just as a ballpark, I would look at the number of sprinkler heads, which are shown on the map, and the proportion taken out, and you could do something similar with, spacing as far as pipes, but the sprinkler heads are going to be a major cost as far as manual installation and the actual cost per head. So to me, it'll be a significant reduction in cost because potentially half of the sprinkler heads are being eliminated.
That's great.
Great.
Heather, did you have your hand up too?
Nope.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jackie.
I don't know if this is the right time, but perhaps a friendly amendment that would say the amount would not exceed, based on Commissioner Warner's back of the envelope calculations, not to exceed $200,000.
Yeah, but that's really rough, though.
I'm not,
I
I'm
would
going to
not
say,
feel
I am not
comfortable
comfortable with
with
the back of the
I
envelope. I trust our staff and Elmer's
Give or take.
to not suddenly balloon a project that's taking a bunch of heads out to 400,000. We have a lot of.
But I
street-
would ask that once there is a dollar figure, it's shared with the city commission.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And in the light of time, I think that's the best option right now. Mitch, you had your hand up.
Yes, I suppose it doesn't serve much point, but I am frustrated that we can't go forward with the original landscaping plan. Echoing our previous discussion about West Front Street and having something in the median that is both traffic calming and placemaking, I see trees in this median serving a very similar role. only it's a much longer stretch of roadway, so we can't just have a couple little sculptures or 4 planter boxes. You need to have multiple trees at regularly spaced intervals. In the long term, trees planted there, given a 12-foot wide median, will thrive and develop strong root systems that will be able to, even in low water years, reach the water table and not require long-term irrigation. But for the first 10, 15 years after they're planted, they will need irrigation to develop that strong root system. Similarly, while we could have, say, native grasses, or even if it's sandy area near to a beach, dune grass is native vegetation that requires very little water, but it can be much more expensive to initially install and get established. And it, unless you're allowing it to spread very slowly over time, it doesn't always have a success rate like turf of you lay it down and 3 months later it's all taken and you can be good.
Okay, well, we've kind of established that MDOT is going to be responsible for what's in there, and we are going to do the change order as see fit, and the motion will not include irrigation for the median, so we're moving past that item. Did I give Sarah enough time to finish the motion?
I believe so.
All right, can we please have that motion read, Sarah?
That the competitive bidding process be waived and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract with Team Elmers in an amount not to exceed $398,002, which includes a 10% contingency for the installation of irrigation lines on the north and south side of Grandview Parkway only for the new and existing landscaping along the city's right-of-way on the 2025 Grandview Parkway Project Phase 2 with funds from the Capital Projects Fund, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute necessary documents to effectuate the necessary change orders to exclude the median.
Thank you. Okay, so that's our motion. Okay. I'm going to now open this up for any public comment, please.
Mind
Sorry.
if I ask a clarifying
Oh,
question?
sorry, hold on just one
I'm
second.
sorry.
I'm going to hold off on public comment for 2 seconds. Sorry, Fred. Yeah.
I apologize. I should have brought this up when we were making the motion, but I didn't know when I could talk.
Oh, sorry.
The roundabout, that's the new, is that considered the median, just for staff clarification? So there's the new roundabout at the bottom of M72 and 22 that was planned to be irrigated as well. That's a part of this estimate. So just on the language, so that we know what to exclude or include with Elmer's, is the median and the roundabout, are they together? Is north and south, how should we proceed with that?
What was the intention of I believe this was Commissioners Stanley and Commissioner Shaw. What was the intention there?
It's the median.
Okay.
Then I withdraw my motion.
All right, I'll second the motion then.
Okay, so
Is that what your motion?
Shaw's making the motion. And
I made the motion, yeah.
Yep, now.
second it.
And Warner has seconded it.
Yeah, unless
So-
we're encouraging people to picnic on the roundabout, it's a median.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I'm going
And
to
if
ask
you
a
look
quick
at the
question,
median-
excuse me, I'm going to ask a quick
Technicality.
question to clarify about the roundabout, please. I know at points we had talked about with MDOT that they were going to work potentially with the tribe or others of doing a more, something that was more visual from above for honoring that being kind of the gateway. Do we know what that plan was before we automatically say no? Was it floral? Was it mostly, where are they at with that design essentially?
It's quite nice, actually. So there's going to be 4 trees in the roundabout, as well as some juniper and grasses, not turf, but other grasses and all native vegetation. So there's river birch, spruce, and some crabapple trees. And the idea was that the roundabout was going to have, I don't know if this is the right engineering terminology, but like a retaining wall of sorts. So it's going to be nice, a visual, what am I trying to say, height element to it. So there'll be different layers of vegetation, and then there's nice trees in the middle. So it will look different than, some other roundabouts in town, where some of those are just pretty ordinary, basic vegetation. This one, the intent was to have it be more visually appealing.
Okay.
And who designed
it.
this?
MDOT.
Okay.
Its staff had input also.
I'll support the roundabout with its landscaping.
Okay, so should I go back, because I'm assuming that Tim doesn't, so should I go, would that be Stanley? Okay. So we're back to Stanley and Shaw making the motion. It includes the roundabout, not the other median pieces. Now we're all clear, I think. Does that clarify everything else for you?
Thank you.
Yep,
Yes,
nope, I
thank you.
appreciate you asking, thank you. All right, now we will begin public comment. Thank you for your patience,
Okay,
Fred.
Fred Bimber, 1223 Randolph Street, city resident. One important function of the city commission is fiscal oversight, and to proceed on this basis is completely backwards. You've got a contract proposed waiving competitive bidding where somebody says for $400,000, I'm going to install irrigation, north side, south side, median, and roundabout. Now you're saying we're taking out a big part of this work, but the price is still not to exceed $400,000. That's crazy. The city commission should not pass any resolution authorizing a contract like this without knowing what the price not to exceed will actually be. You should do what Commissioner Anderson originally suggested. This has to go back to the drawing board and come to the city commission with a true not to exceed price. That's the only way the city commission will properly do its function. Do it that way.
Thank you. Any other comments on this?
So just to let you know is that this has been gone out for bid. So they're supposed to start in April. So any kind of little gaps or any kind of little, trying to go back to the city commission, might not have the time for that because it's been designed. So it's already pretty much has been done, and Elmer's is getting the contract through MDOT, and MDOT came up with the design, and MDOT is going to say, you know what? Yes, we've already got the build and the bid out for this design. So trying to say, yep, we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip this, we're going to skip that, but maybe come up with a compromise. And you may not get everything you want, but at least with a compromise, you get some things. You're not get everything, so it's going to go through, but at least, you tried. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the commission. And, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Motion passes, and we will get that the updated number as soon as possible when they've done above the back of the envelope, but anticipating probably Commissioner Warner isn't very far off. Go ahead, Commissioner Warner.
Just point of interest that the West End Beach parking lot is part of this, and so we well may be spending additional money to move some of those sprinkler heads because we've not approved a final design for that yet.
Thank you. That's a good reminder. Okay, so that moves us through new business. We actually have no appointments. I thank the clerk staff for having quite a few for us the last couple weeks. I think we're caught up now between ad hocs and appointments.
You deserved a small break.
Thank you. Everybody's, what's on your schedule is on your schedule, at least for now. And we will move on to reports and correspondence. And I'll just start at the end of the line, if going down. Does anybody have any reports from your respective? Tim looked for a moment and shook his head. Seeing none, go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, this is a report on topics upcoming tomorrow at the Planning Commission meeting. That there will be a public hearing and a possible Planning Commission vote on increasing density in R2 zones to 4 dwellings per parcel. There will be a public hearing on the capital improvements plan for 25-26. The 2024 Planning Annual Report is going to be, has made available within the packet, and there may or may not be commentary on that. One of the important things to note, I think, in terms of a top line is that there were, during 2024, 373 new dwelling units permitted and 542 short-term rental licenses issued. Katie Bertodato, you may recognize as a former DDA board member and who is now a board member of the Michigan Short-Term Rental Association, will be presenting to the Planning Commission on the topic of short-term rentals, and staff reports that they are awaiting Planning Commission direction on how to proceed with this subject. So I'm optimistic that we can make some headway on that. And then Planning Director Winter received the special land use permit submitted by Safe Harbor to operate a year-round emergency shelter at their current Wellington Street location. The staff report will be available to the public on March 13th, and a public hearing is tentatively planned for March 18th.
To clarify, the short-term rentals, those are the ones that are renewed every year. Those weren't 500 new ones, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I
That
just
is
wanted to-
correct. Total licenses issued.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that report. Always appreciated. Any other reports? Seeing none, then, we will move on to public comment. This is general public comment about anything at all under the sun. Does anybody have any general public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Any final thoughts from commissioners? Tim? Gonna do it online?
Yeah, there was an email to us earlier today to share awareness that tomorrow evening at the library, the League of Women Voters, together with NMC, is presenting on some NMC work dealing with microplastics in the environment. That's between 6 and 7:30 p.m. tomorrow at the library.
Thank you for sharing that. Mark, you had your hand up?
I just want to apologize. I'll be absent next week.
Thank you.
Heads up.
Go ahead, Jackie.
And I just wanted to say thank you to staff for the quarterly financial report.
Yeah.
Much appreciated, both the numbers and the commentary. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Okay. Mitch?
And I'll just like to express some solidarity with our neighbors to the north. The soon-to-go-into-effect tariffs will have severe implications for trade for the state of Michigan as a whole and Ontario specifically. And while it might not directly impact Traverse City, it will definitely impact other communities like Sault Ste. Marie, Port Huron, and Detroit.
And it will impact our agriculture here, too. Any other comments? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting. Slava Ukraini!